Anxiety is a hard thing to describe to someone who's never had it. From the outside, it looks like just worrying too much and getting worked up over things that probably won't happen. But from the inside, it's stranger. It feels less like worry and more like certainty, like you already know the bad thing is coming and everyone around you is just sitting there completely unaware. It's one of those harder feelings to put into honest words, which is part of why it's odd that one of the better depictions of anxiety that I've run into came from South Park. Two of them, actually. There's Put It Down from season 21, where Tweek falls apart over the threat of nuclear war, and Craig tries to be a good boyfriend about it. And then there's Buddha Box from season 22, where Cartman puts an actual cardboard box over his head so the world will leave him alone. And if you watch these back to back, you sort of see that they're telling one story, and it's a more honest story about anxiety than the show actually gets credit for, right down to the parts that it gets wrong. Because underneath both of them is the same idea. Put It Down opens with Tweek walking on stage at a school assembly to perform a song that he wrote about tensions with North Korea, which is a heavy topic for a piano recital, but for most of the show's run, Tweek has kind of been a punchline, the twitchy kid vibrating in the background of every scene, partly because his parents run the local coffee shop and have spent years lacing his coffee with meth. So, a baseline sense that the world is about to end is more or less his factory setting.
We're all gonna die! They have nuclear missiles! Why are you just sitting there, doing nothing?
It would be easy to watch this and see the usual Tweek bit, the spaz having a meltdown, but the episode is doing something more deliberate with this scene. Under all the paranoia over the threat of war, it's drawing what anxiety feels like from the inside, and anyone who's going through it or has gone through it is going to recognize it pretty fast. And right before Tweek puts that feeling into his own words, quick word from who's sponsoring today's video. Polybuzz is an app for talking to AI characters, and they've got Tweek sitting right on there. So I actually pulled him up and I asked him flat out whether North Korea was about to bomb us. Over 40 million people have already downloaded it, and there are also more than 20 million characters already built if you'd rather skip the building part and jump into one that somebody else made. You build whatever character you want, you give it a personality, and text it like a normal conversation. Or you can skip that and drop into one of the millions already there. This is not a replacement for human relationships though, so do keep that in mind. The link and code are down in the description, and the code LESSONS77 gets you a 3-day free trial of the premium features, so it costs nothing to go mess with it and try it out for a few days. Anyway, here is Tweek saying it himself.
Like I have no control over my life. Like I'm just a pawn in a big game. Yeah, like trapped, but like completely unable to even move.
Strip away the cartoon screaming, and you've got a clear description of clinical anxiety. It comes down to the feeling of having no control. You are a pawn. Things happen to you, and you can't move or do anything about it. Researchers who study where anxiety comes from keep coming to the same conclusion. A low sense of control over your own life is one of the strongest setups to becoming an anxious person in the first place. And slowly but surely, you begin to develop something called an intolerance of uncertainty. For some people, an open question isn't just as simple as saying, oh, I guess I'll find out. It's the brain thinking of uncertainty as danger, so it tries to force the question shut the only way it can when there's no available answer yet, by running through every way things could go wrong. If you grow up feeling like life is something that happens to you with no real say in it, your system learns to stay permanently braced for impact, because bracing feels like the only move you've got. So if the root problem is a lost sense of control, helping someone through this should be simple, right? You hand a little of control back to them, you reassure them, you walk them through why they're safe, you remind them that it'll all be fine, right? This is real simple. It's basically Craig's entire game plan for the next stretch of the episode. And it works so well that the two of them break up in an amusement park. Craig Tucker is the steady one, well, by South Park standards anyway, so when the other boys tell him that his boyfriend is melting down and he should go deal with it, Craig figures that it can't be that hard.
He's your boyfriend, dude. He's not gonna listen to me. He never does when he's emotional.
And in that throwaway line, Craig is already closer to the truth than he realizes. Hold on to that because we'll come back to it. First, he has to work through nearly every wrong move there is, and he gets through most of them. He starts with trying to get Tweek to do something about it, so he convinces Tweek to send cupcakes to the North Koreans. But that backfires, so now Tweek is convinced that North Korea is about to bomb him as he gets directly involved in the president's increasingly hostile tweets. So Craig again tries to distract him and reaches for the possibly most 2017 object ever put on film.
It's a fidget spinner. It's supposed to help with anxiety, see?
Then he resorts to pure logic.
North Korea isn't going to attack anyone, okay? They're not going to start a war they can't win, okay?
And when all of that fails, Craig escalates to taking Tweek to an amusement park, which is how the two of them end up having a full-on argument while distracted drivers keep flattening pedestrians around them, because this episode is also somehow about texting and driving.
You haven't been dealing with it. You've been trying to make it go away because my emotions are freaking you out.
That fight is what the whole episode has been working toward, and a second later, Craig proves Tweek's point even harder than Tweek did.
Well, I'm sorry that I'm actually in control of my goddamn emotions, you baby! Oh, see, now you made me lose control of my emotions. God damn it.
There are two things going on here. The first is that you can't reason someone out of a panic, and there's a physical reason why. When the brain decides that there's a threat, it floods the body with stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol and shifts its resources towards survival, away from the slow, careful thinking part up front, the prefrontal cortex. That is the part that you use to weigh evidence and talk yourself down, and while the alarm is going off, it's running on low power. So when Craig hands Tweek a clean, logical argument, there's nobody home to receive it. The second thing stings more, and Tweek says it to his face. Everything Craig tried, the facts and the spinner and the day at the amusement park, was really Craig trying to settle himself to solve the Tweek problem, with Tweek's panic as the whole thing winding him up, causing Craig to feel unsettled himself. Watching someone you love fall apart is contagious, and no one likes that. Their fear gets into your body, and once you're rattled too, solving their problem turns into a way to switch off the alarm going off inside yourself. There's even a name for the skill Craig is missing, which is differentiation, which is the ability to stay steady next to someone else's big feelings without getting dragged underneath by them. 10-year-old Craig has none of that. He gets dragged under pretty much by Tweek, so he keeps trying to fix Tweek's problem when the person he actually needs to manage is himself, and he hands Tweek that job instead. If you've ever been the one trying to help someone with anxiety, this part might sting too, because most of us have done this unknowingly. Someone we love starts spiraling, and we immediately start trying to fire off solutions. Have you tried this? Why don't you just do that? Come on, it's so logical, just fix the problem. We tell ourselves that we're being supportive when a good chunk of what we want is for the bad feeling in the room to go away. Come on, you're just being ridiculous. Why are you making me feel this way? The hard part is that someone spiraling can feel that happening. They know what's up. Being managed and being cared for are different experiences, and someone in distress can usually tell within seconds which one they're getting. So Craig runs out of ideas and storms off, because nothing he tried worked. And the real answer, when it finally shows up, comes from Heidi, Cartman's girlfriend, who is, by this point in the season, actually possibly having the worst year of anyone in the state of Colorado. Heidi has spent this entire season being emotionally strip-mined by a 4th grader, the same 4th grader currently faking suicide threats so she won't dump him. And we've got a whole video exploring that dumpster fire that the relationship really was, so check that out as well. It happens in the cafeteria. Cartman has hijacked a memorial for the kids killed by distracted drivers to promote his own suicide awareness potluck.
We're gonna have lots of games and face painting, and what are you guys gonna have?
Heidi tells him to knock it off, and when he demands to know what a memorial even is supposed to fix, her answer is the whole point of the warmer half of this story.
It's not about problem solving, Eric. It's about people getting together and feeling what they need to feel.
She goes on,
And the best thing isn't always quick answers, but just being there, supporting each other, and talking through those feelings.
Craig is sitting right there, and you can watch it hit him, because everything Tweek had been screaming at him on that Ferris wheel was the same thing Heidi just said in calmer words. So he runs to Tweek's house and tries the one move he hasn't attempted the entire episode. He just shuts up and asks Tweek how he feels.
Well, that must be horrible to feel that way.
It is! It's terrible!
I bet it's terrible. What else are you feeling?
It sounds almost sarcastic coming out of Craig, who delivers comfort like he's reading a hostage statement. But it works, and there's a real reasoning behind why. A couple of things are happening at once. The first is validation, which people tend to hear as agreeing that someone else's fear is correct, when really it just means signaling that the feeling makes sense and that they're not alone inside it. Craig never tells Tweek the missiles are real, only that it's okay to be scared, and the scared part of Tweek finally has somewhere to go, other than straight back into his own head. The second one is simpler and a bit wild, making Tweek say what he's feeling out loud, and that turns the feeling down. When you put an emotion into words and you describe it and you detail it, the alarm center in your brain gets less active, almost like naming the thing can drain some of its charge. Therapists call this name it to tame it. Once Tweek is settled enough to actually think, he solves his problem himself.
Maybe I have to find a way to feel a little in charge of me again.
This explains most of it. By submitting to the fear, Tweek was being a pawn, and the way out was getting one small piece of agency, one thing that was his to do. All Craig needed to do was make Tweek feel heard enough to find his own grip, make him feel cared about enough. And Tweek goes and writes a song about it, which is a deeply Tweek way to take your power back, but it's his. So that is the gentle, almost sweet idea at the center of Put It Down. You can't hand an anxious person control, and you can't argue with them or logic them into calmness, but you can sit with them until they're steady enough to reach for a grip on their own, or you can help them sit down with a person whose job it is to deal with this stuff. People loved this episode, and you can see why. It treats a freaking out kid like he's an actual person worth understanding, like a lot of us who harbor anxiety a lot of the time. So hold on to that warmth, because the show's very next swing at anxiety is a whole lot colder and a whole lot meaner. Buddha Box opens with Cartman in a therapist's office, complaining that everyone else around him is exhausting, and the only thing that makes him happy is being left alone with his phone. The therapist nods along and hands him a label.
I believe that what you have is anxiety.
And then he says something that in the real world would probably get his license revoked.
What it really is more than anything is an excuse to be lazy and lame to everyone around you.
And notice the therapist hands this diagnosis out while sneaking peeks at his own phone. So even the guy doing the diagnosing can't put his phone down, and he is also part of the problem. Hey, sometimes the system is part of the issue. And Cartman, being Cartman, hears the word anxiety and immediately clocks a weapon that he can use against others.
I have anxiety. That means I'm in my shell and have a hard time expressing myself.
Then he finds the Buddha Box, which is a cardboard box that you wear over your head, marketed as inner peace. It lets you stare at your phone while the entire world stays sealed off behind cardboard.
Order Buddha Box today, and you too can have that quiet, quality time with your phone, like the Buddha.
So it's noise-canceling headphones for your whole life, a blanket fort that you can wear to a funeral. And the episode is actually clever, even though it buries the clever part under a pile of meanness, because, hey, the box works. In the moment, it absolutely works, locking the world away behind a wall. Cartman is calmer with it on, and that's exactly what makes it poison. The worst coping mechanisms for anxiety are the ones that work right away, like a drug. When something scares you, and you avoid it by hiding, leaving, or putting a cardboard box between you and the conversation, you get an instant shot of relief. And that relief teaches your brains two lies. It teaches you that the thing really was dangerous because look how good it felt to escape it. And it teaches you that you couldn't have handled it any other way. So the fear actually grows in the background, your comfort zone shrinks, and you need the box a bit more every time. You use it as the coping mechanism itself instead of dealing with your own fear. Psychologists call this experiential avoidance, and it's one of the main engines that keeps an anxiety disorder running for years. The show actually makes this point better in its subplot than its main one. PC Principal and his secret girlfriend, Vice Principal Strongwoman, are secretly raising their litter of PC babies together, and they start wearing the boxes to escape the screaming. It buys them peace, and it also means that they don't notice their kids stroll out the front door, become a touring protest band, and sign a record deal all in one afternoon.
We missed everything because we were on our phones.
There's the bill for avoidance, printed in plain numbers. The box doesn't only block out the stuff that scares you, it blocks out everything, your kid's entire childhood happening 6 feet away. Whenever you wall off to feel calmer, you wall off all of the good parts with it, and nobody gives those afternoons back. So, across the two episodes here, the show has handed us both halves of one coin. In Put It Down, the way through anxiety was leaning in, being heard, and finding one real thing to do, not to avoid it. In Buddha Box, the way deeper into the anxiety is sealing off, going numb behind a screen, and not facing it altogether. Which would make a tidy little two-part lesson if South Park hadn't decided, right in the middle of Buddha Box, to argue that most anxiety is actually fake to begin with. This is where Buddha Box turns, and where a big chunk of the audience kind of checked out when it aired. The episode's actual argument, stated plainly, is that a lot of people's anxiety is mostly a scam. Cartman gets diagnosed, doesn't really have anything wrong with him beyond loving his phone and hating other people, and uses this label as a hall pass to be a monster to everyone. Then this spreads, and soon half the town is wearing boxes and waving the word around to excuse whatever they already wanted to do.
Everyone has anxiety. Everyone gets nervous. Everyone is afraid being around people.
And then Kyle says the thing the episode clearly believes is the truth.
And you know what they do? They get over it. And they stop being a piece of shit.
What's uncomfortable is that Kyle is half right. There's everyday anxiety, the nerves before a date, the dread of a phone call, the wanting to skip the party, and that kind is genuinely universal. Everybody has it, everybody pushes through it, and using this as a license to treat people badly is a choice. Aimed at Cartman, Kyle's speech is dead on. But the episode pulls a quiet little switch. Everyday nervousness and clinical anxiety, an actual disorder, are two different animals, and Budabox lumps them into one mockable pile. Just get over it is fine advice for pre-party jitters and for people who don't actually have anxiety disorder, but saying that to someone with a real anxiety disorder, it's about as useful as telling a guy with a broken leg to just walk it off. The episode never makes that distinction, so its whole anxiety is overblown thesis only holds if you pretend the clinical kind doesn't exist. Well, to be fair to the show, it is poking at something real and it might not be trying to deal with the actual anxiety disorder. This is called concept creep, the slow stretching of words that describe serious psychological conditions until they cover milder and milder stuff. Trauma drifts towards meaning a bad day, abuse toward a rude text, anxiety toward any generic fear and any moment that you'd rather skip. People get sharper at spotting a disorder everywhere, and worse at recognizing plain, ordinary discomfort for what it actually is. And sure, there are people out there doing exactly what Cartman does, grabbing a clinical word so they never have to be uncomfortable or accountable again, or so that they can get a diagnosis to be able to get a weed card. Cartman has got a rap sheet for this kind of behavior too, since this is the same kid who once faked Tourette's so that he could scream slurs on live TV and call it a medical condition. But that Tourette's episode is exactly where you can see what Budabox gets wrong, because it's the same Cartman move, pulled off the right way. In Le Petit Tourette, Cartman fakes a condition to be able to say whatever he wants. The difference is that the episode also has other characters with actual Tourette's for contrast, so it got to skewer the faker without ever sneering at the real sufferers. And that's generally why people rate it as the better handled episode. Budabox had everything it needed to do the same, and it just didn't. It didn't contrast the fake anxiety with the real one. Because South Park already has its anxiety guy, the one person in town who has anxiety. They spent a whole beloved episode one season earlier treating his anxiety with genuine tenderness and care. Tweek's panic is so real that the writers gave him a literal chemical source for it, the meth in his coffee, which, jokes aside, basically makes him the one resident in town walking around with a doctor's note. He's the perfect character to wander into this episode, take one good look at Cartman, and call the entire grift for what it is. All South Park had to do was compare everyone in town to Tweek and point out the differences. And the show benches him. Tweek gets a single sad line in a group therapy scene, mourning that his boyfriend has changed and barely talks to him anymore.
I just feel like Craig has changed so much lately, he barely even talks to me anymore.
And Craig, the boy who spent an entire episode learning how to love an anxious person, is now the one hiding in the cardboard box while the actually anxious kid sits there ignored. The show took its sweetest couple and ran them over in a parking lot. Which is the irony that the episode never notices about itself. When everybody grabs a word and strips out all the weight to it that it used to carry, people who actually live under that weight get drowned out, and the episode kinda does that on screen. It's so busy mocking the fakers that it loses track of the one kid in town who is the real deal, and shoves him into the background of his own franchise's anxiety episode. Le Petit Tourette remembered to keep the real sufferers in frame, but Budabox forgot Tweek was standing right there and missed a good opportunity. Which might be why one of these episodes picked up an Emmy nomination and the other one didn't. Anxiety in both stories comes down to that feeling of having no control, and almost every move people make to escape it is a desperate attempt to reach for control that was never on the table. So the honest advice really depends on which attempt you make. If your move is reaching for relief, The phone scrolling, the cancelled plans, the box that blocks off the world, the "I'll just stay in tonight." Just keep in mind that treating anything that makes you feel instantly better is a suspect instead of a cure. It's definitely only temporary. Relief that shows up the second you avoid something is usually the sound of the cage door clicking shut. The harder move, the healthier one a lot of the time, staying in that fear, facing it and dealing with it, as long as it's healthy and recommended by your therapist, is generally the one that shrinks the fear over time. If your move is hunting for absolute certainty, refreshing the news, rereading that text, asking, "But are you sure it'll be okay?" for the 9th time, notice that the reaching itself is the symptom. You'll never gather enough information to feel certain. You'll never feel safe because the world isn't safe. Certainty was never on the table, and Tweek could have read every intelligence briefing on North Korea and still feel exactly as terrible as before. It's not about the logic of it. It's not about what the answer to the problem is. It's about the inside of the person feeling that fear. If your move is feeling like a pawn, like life is just happening to you, then do what Tweek eventually did and find the smallest thing in front of you that is genuinely yours to do and go do that one thing. Find the control in your own life. You're not going to fix the whole threat. You're not going to solve the whole world because you can't. That's never a possibility. But you can stop being a pawn and stop being thrown around by life for a few minutes. Take control of what tiny aspect of life you can. A song, a walk, that one email you've been dreading, that little project you want to work on. Control over your own next move is the only control there really ever was, and you have to focus on that. It's usually enough to get the floor back under your feet and really back in your own mind. And if it's someone you love who's drowning in this anxiety, the entire Craig disaster boils down to a single question you can actually ask out loud. Do you want help solving this problem, or do you just want me to listen? Most of the time, it's really the second option. Hold off handing them facts and logic, because the part of them that processes facts has gone dark for the moment. That's not what this is about. And be honest with yourself about whether your urge to fix them is really an urge to feel less helpless yourself. This is the caveat that Buddhabox was too busy being mean to include. None of this cures an actual anxiety disorder. These are ways to handle a feeling, not a replacement for real help, and Tweek can't simply get over it, no matter how loud Kyle yells. I mean, the people who are faking it probably, but the part of the show that showed this was wrong, full stop, and it didn't handle this with the care that it should have. But Cartman hiding from his whole life inside of a cardboard box because being a person felt hard, that part was always a choice, and choices can change. So the next time something scares you and you feel anxious about the world and your hand drifts towards your phone for an escape, mostly out of habit at this point, maybe think about what a dumb cartoon spent 2 whole episodes trying to tell you. Put the phone down, face your fears, and gain some control over your life. That fear that we opened with, the one where you're dead certain everyone secretly can't stand you, South Park built an entire episode around where that comes from, and it gets a lot rougher than a weird text. In the list, the girls rank every boy in class by looks, and the rankings leak, and Kyle finds out that he came in dead last. Officially the ugliest kid in school, in writing. What it does to him after that is one of the sharpest, saddest things the show ever pulled off about feeling unwanted, and how one piece of information about how other people see you can completely rewrite how you see yourself. We broke down that whole thing right here, so go watch it next. Peace, y'all. Like and subscribe, by the way. I really have to say that more often. Like and subscribe! I appreciate that you're here. Thank you so much. The link and code are down in the description, and the code LESSONS77 gets you a 3-day free trial of the premium features, so it costs nothing to go mess with it and try it out for a few days.